Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Real Steel Podcast, where we talk all things Pittsburgh Steelers, no BS, just the real steel. I'm your host, Jeff. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Polt. It's a tough week for the Pittsburgh Steelers after the Colts handed us first loss of the season, which we're going to break down for you. But one thing I can say right off the bat, we had our fair share of losses last year, and for a lot of those games, Polt, it felt like it was tough to find a silver lining or find the good in those games. I
Yeah.
think it's not as hard to do in this game, despite kind of that first half blowout. So what do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. That first half was a little brutal, but they definitely fought back in the second half, and I think it gave us a lot of takeaways and a lot of things that we can talk about and improve upon moving forward. So yeah, it although it was close and kind of a heart-wrenching loss, it didn't feel like that. Like
Yeah.
I feel like we have a lot of positives coming out of it.
Yeah, 27-24. We lose by a field goal, really. We had multiple opportunities to put more points on the board. We possessed the ball at the end of the game, too, and certainly had a chance to go ahead and win. So
Yeah.
let's go ahead and break it down. Let's kind of start at the beginning. And I think most of what we probably want to talk about, at least for the Steelers offensively, is going to come in the second half of the game. I don't think
Yeah.
we necessarily need to go drive by drive for the first part of the game, given such a slow start for the Steelers. But, we walk into the locker room and we're down 17-3. We're fortunate to put points on the board on our last drive of the first half. We ended up notching in a 50-yard field goal by Chris Boswell to be down 2 touchdowns and then to get the ball first thing in the start of the second half. But frustrating, I think, is probably a really good word to say, watching the Steelers kind of take the field and kind of perform in the first half. Really a lack of performance overall, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely think there's things to talk about here. I mean, giving up three straight scoring drives to start the game, touchdown, touchdown, field goal to the Colts is, I mean, 17 points in the first quarter. That's hard to overcome.
Hmm.
That's a tough way to start. But there were some opportunities on our side too. I mean, if you look at the second drive of the game, that was when we went for it on our own, I believe, 40-yard line, 39-yard line on 4th and 1. I think right there was our first mistake of the day. Mike Tomlin should have, I believe, challenged the third down run by Najee Harris. I thought it was a terrible spot. Ended up not. Went in shotgun for a fourth down sneak, and we ended up not getting it. So then we give them the ball on our own 39 and give up a field goal right away. And then 2 plays later, we fumble the ball on the 5-yard line. George Pickens trying to extend the play. So I mean, to be down 17-7, looking back on it, actually kind of seems like a blessing. Like it honestly seems like we should have been down a lot more. With the mistakes we were making, but we also could have been a lot closer. So it's like a double-edged sword there.
Yeah, I think those are good points. I mean, we got picked apart really, really
Picked
early
apart.
defensively. I mean, we've used the phrase Swiss cheese before in the past. I think we used that a lot last season.
Yeah.
But those first two drives, 8 plays, 70 yards by the Colts for a touchdown, and then a 9 play, 86-yard drive. Really, the Colts driving the entire field, both of those drives. Like you said, the other one's a little bit more excusable given we kind of gave them the ball inside the 40-yard line pretty
Yeah.
much, almost in field goal territory instantly. But the first two drives defensively, I mean, the Steelers were just not really getting anything done. It was pass play after pass play where we were just getting picked off, it seemed like. And that was a little bit frustrating to watch, given what we had talked about earlier in the season, is that our secondary felt like they were playing really, really well.
Yeah, they did. But obviously, and we'll get into it when we break down the defense, but obviously there was some miscues and some lack of communication there that really hurt us.
I think there's a few key things that I just want to talk about really quickly in the first half before we kind of go to maybe the better part of the game. Three things. First of all, at least in my opinion, the first drive for the Steelers, we made it all the way down to, I think, the 40 Indy 41-yard line.
Yep.
And would have been a 58, 59-yard field goal, something in that range. We've talked about how Chris Boswell has been solid all year. He did have that one miss, really, really deep. I think it was last game, right?
Yeah.
But opted not to take the field goal and to punt down 7-0 after your defense kind of just got picked apart and not opting for points on the board. That was really, really frustrating for me to watch. I feel like we should have, I'm saying frustrating a lot, but really was,
It's a good word for this game.
frustrated. I think that was a really, yeah, challenging thing to watch. The second you had mentioned the turnover on downs, the fourth down where we went for it on our own 39-yard line. I don't dislike the call to go for it. I just don't
No.
like the execution of it and how we went about it. Justin Fields was standing in shotgun, was he not?
Yes, he was in
Yeah,
shotgun, and let me get his measurements. I mean, the guy's a big guy. Like, let him get behind under center and sneak the ball. He's probably going to get it. He's 6'3", 230. I mean, go sneak the ball.
I'll tell you this, why don't you put Darnell Washington in a fullback position and hand him the ball? I mean,
Sure.
you saw his massive run that he had on the catch
Yeah.
and run. Why not do something like that? So I think just I like the decision. I like when we're gutsy.
Yeah.
I am okay with that. I just yeah, I'm a little bit mad at the execution. And then the third thing is the George Pickens fumble that you also mentioned. Dude's got to hold on to the ball. You're in scoring territory, and to turn over the ball right there when we could have at least got some more points on the board. Hard to watch as well. So those really for me were the three biggest, I would say, single plays of the game. Aside from the fact that again our defense just was not playing up to par in the early parts of the game.
And before the Boswell, when they didn't kick when they punted from the 41 instead of kicking the field goal, I actually forgot about this, but I remember now the Spencer Anderson unnecessary roughness penalty on 2 plays prior to, I guess, the first third down attempt. It was 3rd and 8. We were on the 34, so it would have been a even more manageable field goal. He got the 15-yard penalty, moved us back to the 49, and then we threw an 8-yard dump pass. Which kind of seemed like we were trying to get closer to getting field goal range. Well, don't do that and then not kick the field goal. I
Hmm.
mean, it's like, so first of all, we make the mistake of the penalty, and then we make the mistake of going conservative and then not utilizing it to get points. And that was just a culmination of bad decisions.
Yeah, penalties, 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 man. Big, big story in this game.
Yeah.
You know me, I harp on the officials. I'm really gonna try not to do that because I
Good
think
luck.
I think the Steelers lost this game for other reasons. I will say you put it very eloquently when we had talked earlier in the week that, officials, how did you say it? You said,
I said the refs
officials
in the
have an
NFL
impact.
change outcomes of games, and I do believe they played a role in this one.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, right? They play a role in the outcome of games. Unfortunately, there were some really, really bad calls. Again, we're not going to harp on this, but just not saying that one that you mentioned on Spencer Anderson wasn't legit. But there
Yeah.
was a really, really bad unnecessary roughness call on Minka Fitzpatrick going in for a hit. Essentially, the receiver dropped the ball. He couldn't stop his momentum. Didn't even lean in with his helmet. Kind of slowed down and used his
Yeah.
shoulder. Got called for a penalty. You could probably watch every single hold on TJ Watt as he was kind of rushing the quarterback. There were a lot, and I know we say that a lot, but there were some legitimate missed holding calls. So that was just yeah. I'm a little bit disappointed in that. I'm not going to harp on it, but we got to clean up some of those things, and there were some penalties that went in our favor too. So again,
Yeah.
I don't think that is the sole reason we lost this game. I think it played an impact in perhaps some points on the board on both sides, but I'll leave it at that. It was tough to watch. We knew that with this officiating crew, we were going to get a lot of flags. They were the second highest in terms of officiating crews throwing flags. So
Yeah.
kind of knew what we were in for, but it's unfortunate, right?
Yeah. Really is.
So, you want to talk a little bit about the second half here? I think things kind of started to play a little bit more in our favor in the second half. We did start to get some points on the board, pull a little bit closer. We got within 7 points at one point, 10-17. Colts tacked on another touchdown, 24-10, but added on another touchdown from our end. And yeah, we pulled within 24-27, which was for much of the fourth quarter where it felt like we had a chance.
Yeah, the start of the third quarter was a bit of a roller coaster, right? We started off with a drive to get to basically midfield and ended up having to punt again. We then force the three and out, and you have the 30-yard punt return by Calvin Austin to get us
Hmm.
in field goal range right away, and the Indianapolis 33. And we have 3 plays, a third down and 10, and Justin Fields makes a bad decision and tries to avoid a sack and actually fumbles the ball at about the 50-yard line, and the Colts recover. So there goes our good field position. But from there on, the rest of the half, we played really, really well. 3 straight touchdown drives after that. Honestly, it's the best I think the offense has looked in 2, 3 years, to be honest with you. And then the last drive of the game where we turned it over on downs, where we had a bad snap on second down, I think, really put us behind the sticks. So again, mistakes, and more mistakes by us, just kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. But we were in the second half. I mean, it was a great job coming back and making it a game. Defense,
Hmm.
I guess, at the end of the game gave us an opportunity, but definitely had some more opportunities to get stops and just did not come through for us. But it seemed like the offense was clicking way better than it had been in the past.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I didn't like though, and that was the fact that it had to take us being down significantly to be able to, you
Yeah,
know, loosen the leash a little bit for Justin Fields to kind of have the full reins of the offense. That to me says a lot, I think, about how maybe Arthur Smith or Mike Tomlin feels about him. Um, does that make me feel like they don't think he's fully ready to unleash that or in the early parts of the game? I think it's a common theme, and we've seen this year after year with conservative play calling from the Steelers, and I don't really know what the common denominator is at this point, right? Because now we've gone through different quarterbacks, we've gone through different offensive play callers. To me, the only common denominator here is Mike Tomlin.
yep,
And it's crazy because we just praised him last game, or at least I did. I really think Mike Tomlin coached a really, really good game last week. And now, I'll be honest with you, Paul, he was a candidate for my jag off for the week. With the botched, the challenge that he always seems to have, the poor challenge,
terrible.
not taking the timeout in before that fourth down, the 4th and 10 that we had, not taking a timeout when there were 40 seconds left. So if we took that timeout, had we converted, we would have been able to stop the clock and, with a spike when we're in field goal range. And just, the lack of kind of motivation, I think that
Yeah,
he provides. And again, I really, really go back to that field goal, the not taking that field goal opportunity on the first drive of the game inside of 60 yards. Mike Tomlin said in his press conference on Tuesday that he has faith in Boz's leg inside of 60. And I get you want to play the field position game, and there's a lot of things that are going into it, but that was just. Yeah, I think unexcusable for me. And so he's not going to get my jag off. We'll talk about that in a second, but he's kind of the common denominator here. I think this is like the classic, you know, Mike Tomlin game, like what we
yep.
talk about.
Yeah, I mean, we always have these letdowns. We were hoping this year was going to be different, and it wasn't. We had our letdown. We came out of the gate flat. We came out not ready to play. Again, 17-0 after one is a terrible way to start the game and hard to come back from. And I mean, we talked about this last year when we had stinkers out of the gate. That's all on coaching, and you shouldn't have
Stinkers.
to. You shouldn't have to wait until the second half to start getting going. I mean, it's just like you need to be prepared, and they obviously weren't. And with the offense stuff, absolutely we're conservative, and I don't put it on Arthur Smith fully because look what we did in the second half. We called a more I guess aggressive game. Justin Fields looked awesome. We threw the ball really well, and we were able to succeed. Why did that not happen in the first half? I think because Mike Tomlin doesn't want us to play like that. He wants us to run the ball, conserve the ball, keep time of possession, play defense, and win low scoring games. And that's fine when the defense is playing well, but the defense isn't always going to be able to play lights out and give up 10 points a game. That's just not feasible in the NFL. And I think Justin Fields proved his worth. He's shown how good he can be and how much he's changed since his years in Chicago. And I think they need to just let go of the leash and just let him be play aggressive and let's come up with game plans to actually win games and score points, not just muster a couple points and hope that we can hold them to zero. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just not feasible in the NFL nowadays. And if we're not going to get with the times, then we're going to continue to be average and mediocre. And I think this really proved to us that we can do it. And so let's not turn back the clocks again and go back conservative.
Yeah, that's kind of the silver lining I take from this game, right? Is had this happened last year, had this happened in maybe the last couple of seasons,
Yeah.
what happens is the Steelers get down and it's way too little too late. And it
Yep.
really almost like it felt like there was enough energy that we could come back and actually win it and we had our chances, right? So
Absolutely.
this was a 3-point game at the end of the day. We didn't get blown out despite getting blown out in the first quarter.
Yeah.
We came back, we fought hard, and I'm not saying that this was a good game for the Pittsburgh Steelers because I don't think it was, but
No.
I think there were, a few, I wouldn't say shining stars, but a few glimmers of hope and a few flashes from certain people. Justin Fields, I know you want to talk about him more, like really, really good stat line with Justin Fields in terms of over 50 rushing yards, two rushing touchdowns on the ground, over 300 passing, and one touchdown through the air. One of I think the first quarterback to do that on the Steelers in I don't know, a long time, but I saw one of the
Yeah.
first quarterbacks, not one of the first quarterbacks, but he's essentially in a really great group of quarterbacks with the likes of, Josh Allen and maybe Pat Mahomes. I don't know, a few others who have done it. But great stuff out of Justin Fields in that second half. So yeah, I just think that it was a little bit encouraging despite how bad we were really playing at the beginning of the game to know that, hey, maybe blowouts aren't really a thing of the future. And they are a thing of the past.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope we were able to fight back. But I mean, it comes down to the end, how we're going to call games. Are we going to let us play aggressive, or are we going to just sit back and wait? And I do think that Arthur Smith might have screwed up and not called a great first half of the game. I thought he called a
Mhm.
pretty good second half of the game. But again, I still do think he is hamstrung and held back by Tomlin. But I mean, Najee Harris' stat line of 13 carries for 19 yards
Oof.
is awful. I mean, just
Yeah.
let's be frank about it. It's terrible, and I'm not going to put all of that on Najee. Najee probably needed to run better, and he is partly to blame. The offensive line's partly to blame, but I also think we were way too predictable. The Colts called our bluff and said, "You guys are going to want to run the ball." We see we're bad run defense. We talked about that last week. They were one of the worst in the leagues, and they said, "Fine, we'll load the box. We'll play man-to-man coverage, put everybody in the box, and see if you can do it." And we weren't able to do it, and we just kept trying and trying and trying. And that's, I think, where it gets really frustrating too. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, it was broke, and
Hmm.
it took them 2 quarters to try and fix it. And even into the third quarter, we were still just trying to run the ball down the gut and impose our will running the ball. And I think at that point in time, we should have known we weren't going to be able to. So just them holding on to that, I think it takes way too long. Like you said earlier, it takes way too long to make the decision to flip the switch and say, we're going to start throwing the ball and we're going to be aggressive. And you just can't do that in the NFL. It's not easy to come back from double digits in the NFL. And that's a philosophy problem.
Yeah. A lot of second down and second and longs that it felt like we ran on. Um, pretty poor stat line as you mentioned from Najee.
Yeah.
While we're here, George Pickens 7 catches, 113 yards. So I guess a game late in my 100-yard prediction
Yeah, you
for
were.
George Pickens, 113. Pat Fryermuth with the receiving touchdown, 5 for 57 yards. So pretty solid game out of Pat.
It's
Najee
good to
did.
see him get in the end zone. I
It
mean, he hasn't
was.
been in the end zone in a long time, so that was good.
Yeah, Najee did do a little bit more damage in the receiving game. I think some of that came much later in the game. But again,
One play.
we spread the ball around, right? Darnell Washington with 2 catches, Van Jefferson with 2 catches. Felt like after you gave him a jag off, he must have heard it and
Yeah, he was listening.
figured out how to run down the field after he caught the ball. So that was good. Cordell Patterson with a couple catches, and Calvin Austin had a really really good play too. Calvin Austin, I think. Shining star or a glimmer of hope, as I said earlier, on our team with
Yeah.
the punt return and whenever we can get him involved. Here's one thing that I'm really, really curious about is what the hell is up with Roman Wilson? Because you got to think that after this performance that he is going to get a helmet this week to play. I think
I
he's
think
healthy,
so.
and I think we need that second push from a wide receiver here.
And this is the stereotypical rip on Tomlin podcast because I mean I believe it's Tomlin again. Supposedly he's fully healthy. The thing I saw on X or Twitter after the game or during the game was that he fully warmed up, and had a 70-yard touchdown catch from Justin Fields in warm up, and was
Mm.
high fiving and celebrating and having a good time. Perfectly healthy is what the report was. But the fact that he's been a healthy scratch 2 straight weeks, and Tomlin's word last week about it was, it's hard to jump on a moving train or something like that. Well, where the train's not really moving. Like we have one receiver and Pat Fryermuth. Like this I feel like is the perfect time to hop on. We need him. And
Yep.
it's not like he hasn't been there in camp. He's been there. He hasn't been practicing, but he learned all the plays and he knows the playbook. Like, give the kid a shot. This goes back to last year where we talked about Joey Porter Jr. and Project Jones and refusing to play these rookies. We're playing rookies this year. McCormick got the start this week. Zach
Yep.
Frazier's been starting.
Yep.
Peyton Wilson's getting big time minutes in the or snaps on the
Hmm.
secondary or on the defense. Why are we holding back Roman Wilson? I mean, I get the injury, but if he's fully healthy, he needs to be out there. That's the kind of difference maker we need. And I just think it's, again, as I said, I think it's a philosophy problem that needs to change.
Yeah, Scotty Miller pretty quiet in this game, 13% of snaps. I think that there's a really, really solid case that you could give
Yeah.
Roman Wilson a helmet over Scotty Miller this week.
I will say, too, I know they like Scotty Miller for special teams. Okay, that's fine. I mean, they have James Pierre now, which helps um, as a gunner. But I, one of the things I saw was one of the problems with our running game is we have our receivers try to block way too much, and we ask them to
Hmm.
block a D end or block somebody on the end of a linebacker on the end of the line of scrimmage, and it's really hard for them. And they're asking Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, and Scotty Miller, these smaller receivers, to do it. Roman Wilson played at Michigan, who, as we know as Penn Staters, threw the ball one time in the entire second half of the game.
Yep.
All he did was block for
Run
them
block. Yep.
and he was
Yep.
very, very successful at it. He doesn't just help you as a pass catcher; he helps you in the running game as a willing and good blocker. I just think there's no negative to not bringing him back
For
or
sure.
to bringing him back. I guess.
Yeah, and I read something
I'm
that
glad
said
you brought that up, though.
yeah, and I think prior to Tuesday or Wednesday, with a couple different moves, we had maybe 51 or 52 people on the active roster. So there's room for Roman Wilson to get some play time here. So
Yeah, definitely.
let's hope it happens. I mean, what else did we draft him for, right? So maybe it's time. Maybe it's time for him to make a splash. Who knows?
Yeah.
Just kind of got to wait and see. What else do you want to talk about with the game? Because I'm fully ready to give you my jag off my balls of steel, but I know you probably want to talk about some
I
players.
mean, we probably got to talk about the defense a little bit. I guess in the second half they did play a lot better. They only gave up 10 points in the second half. And I guess it was two drives. They gave up a 9 yard drive, a 6 yard drive, a negative 5 yard drive, and then the end of the game. So there was a few three and outs in there
Hmm.
in the second half, but I feel like they were really not opportunistic at all. In that first half, especially, some of these scoring drives could have been avoided if they got the turnovers that they had opportunities to have. If you look at I think it was the second drive of the game, their second touchdown. Anthony Richardson fumbled the ball, and it was right. I mean, on our own 46, and it was right in, I guess, our own 29, I think, actually, and it was right in like Patrick Queen's grasps, and he just didn't get it. And he
Yep.
allowed it. He allowed the Colts to get it, and they ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive. On the first drive, actually the first pass of the game, Anthony Richardson threw that 32-yard pass to Michael Pittman. Joey Porter Jr. had a great read on it. He jumped the route and was right there and just let the ball go through his hands. That happened later in the game too on a touchdown. He jumped the route again, played great defense, read the play perfectly, and couldn't intercept the pass. I mean, that's three turnovers, which
Yep.
funny enough was your bold prediction for the
There
week.
they were.
That was three opportunities right there to change the game and get the ball back for the offense, and that would have saved at least two touchdowns in the game. So I, I think that's a really big thing. We know this defense has been really good at getting turnovers, but they were bad this week with it, and I think that played a major, major role.
Yeah, we got to capitalize, right? You lose a turnover battle 2-0, and we talk about I think every episode how that plays such a large role. I found a tweet here from Michael Beck on Twitter that I think is really, really cool. He kind of goes through the Steelers' mistakes, a recap of their mistakes. And
Yeah.
I'm going to break this tweet up just a little bit because we already talked about the offense. We talked about not attempting the 60-yarder, the missed 4th and 1, the Pickens fumble, the Fields fumble, the fumble snap sack, Najee not going out of bounds on the final drive, and not calling the last timeout. So we had all those mistakes offensively. From a defensive, it's the three missed turnovers. Missed pick on the first snap, Patrick Queen couldn't recover the fumble, and the drop pick in the end zone. So
Yep.
you clean up, you honestly, you clean up one or two of these things, you flip one or two of these things and we tie this game or we win this game, right?
Yeah.
Pretty easily you can say that flips the script. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 things on here. 10 things. We fixed two of them. I think we are at least in overtime. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's just crazy. It was self-inflicted. This entire game was self-inflicted wounds, and we just couldn't recover. I do think we got to mention though the linebacking core played a pretty bad game.
Yeah.
I thought Patrick Queen was nowhere to be found. I mean, he had 7 tackles, but I thought he got destroyed in the run game and didn't really do much in the pass game. Peyton Wilson did not look comfortable back there in pass defense. Landon Roberts, did he even play? I mean, he had 3 tackles, but 3 assisted tackles. I didn't see him anywhere. I just thought we got beat up pretty badly in the run game, and then there was, as you said, Swiss cheese holes all over that secondary, and I think a lot of it was underneath. I know Terrell Edmonds was playing. I guess he's the sub linebacker now, so he was playing a lot in pass coverage. It just looked like when you go back and look at everything, and somebody had a tweet of like 4 pictures from the game, and it was always just 2 Steelers defenders looking at each other, like
Hmm.
arguing and talking it through. There was obvious miscommunication throughout the entire game, and that's just not something you can afford because it led to blown coverages and easy points. So
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's a coaching, if that's a lead up to the game kind of thing. Deshaun Elliott did make a comment that maybe that they were practicing hard, but they weren't practicing that hard. Which is really not something you want to hear in
Yep.
week 4 of the NFL season when you're 3-0 and going on the road. But hopefully, like you said, it's a lot of things that we can clean up.
Yeah. I mean, Colts converted on a 3rd and 10, 3rd and 7, and a 3rd and 10 on one drive alone. And
Right.
so that right there, make
Yeah.
a few changes and the outcome of the game is going to be different. So,
Yeah.
okay, you wanna balls, jag off, stat of the week? You got any of that?
I don't have a stat of the week actually, but
Okay.
if you want to give yours, you can.
Yeah, I have a stat of the week. We already mentioned it. I botched it earlier. I was trying to figure out what the stat line was. Here's a list of Steelers quarterbacks who have thrown for 300 pass yards and a touchdown since Big Ben retired. Justin Fields. That's it. That's it. Justin Fields. So,
Yeah, he was good.
I think I don't want to jump to conclusions here. I don't think this is jumping to conclusions, but I think we have our guy. I think we have our guy for the next few years. Don't know if I use the F word and say franchise quarterback would be awesome if it comes to be like that. But I think Justin Fields has a future with the Pittsburgh Steelers after what he's shown in these first 4 games. And Mike Tomlin said to get that starting job, he's just got to keep playing well and winning. So let's hope he
Yeah.
can do it, and we can get rid of that talk.
I'm so tired of it. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I just want to trade Russ at this point, honestly.
Well,
Miami needs to get on the phone and
I don't think that's a
call
good
us.
idea either, but we need to stop being wishy-washy and just give it
Yeah.
to JF too.
All right, let's
All right, let's start with Jagoff.
start with Jagoff.
Go ahead.
I'm probably going to disappoint you here, to be totally honest. I don't think you're going to like this one, but I need to defend myself. And again, I think there's multiple parties. I mentioned Mike Tomlin, mentioned the officials. I know some people get mad at me when I say that, but I'm going to go with someone that I believe had they played better, we would have won the game. Um, and again, don't get mad at me here. Let me defend it. But my Jagoff of the week is going to go to Zach Frazier.
Okay.
Zach Frazier has played tremendously from a blocking perspective. We praised him last week, and I think we might have praised him earlier in the season as well. He's doing a really really good job as a blocker. We also mentioned these miscues with snapping the ball. There's been 4 times in these 4 games that we've had a miscue with the snap.
Yeah.
The last game against the Chargers, we were clean, but we had one in each of our previous games, and then two. The first play on the Steelers' offensive drive, or the first play for the Steelers in this game, and then obviously the one that happened towards the end of the game where we lost a lot of yards. Um, I think there's a lot of moving parts here, right? You have a rookie center. At that point, you had Mason McCormick, who's a rookie left guard. You had a second-year guard in Spencer Anderson. You have a newer quarterback with this system in Justin Fields. We were away, right? You could
Yeah.
argue crowd noise. It was loud. And so I think multiple parties are at fault, but I think that there should be no more excuses for this to happen. And by the way, this happened like I think 4 more times in the preseason. I think there have been 8 total miscues that we have had snapping the ball. And the common denominator here is probably Justin Fields, but Zach Frazier. And so this is something that I think really needs to be addressed and really needs to be fixed because if those mistakes don't happen, then, we're playing a lot better. And that what happened at the end of the game, I believe, doesn't happen. So I'm unfortunately going to give Zach Frazier the Jag off of the week, given the snap miscues and recognizing it's on multiple parties and that he has been blocking really well. But this to me is just really, really deserving of it.
Yeah, I mean, in week 4 of the NFL season, you can't be having miscues like this on snaps. It's just you can't be doing it. I will
Right.
say though, to defend him a little bit, if you go back and watch the play, it was not his fault. It was Justin Fields' fault. Justin Fields gave the leg, the leg step, whatever it is. Mason McCormick hit Zach Frazier, which is what you do on the silent count, and then he snapped it. And Justin Fields actually even it, which I
Sure.
partly like. Justin Fields did come out and admit that it was his fault and took full responsibility that he was trying to get one more look at the coverage and wasn't ready for the ball. But I do kind of get what you're saying too, because Justin Fields took accountability. Mason McCormick took accountability, said that he screwed up. Zach Frazier did not. Zach
Hmm.
Frazier said he didn't really know what happened on the play, and he got hit to snap it, and he snapped it. Took no accountability, and out of a guy you think's going to be and I know he's a rookie. It's the 4th week. Like I'm not going to hold this against him long term, but I would have liked to have seen him as the cornerstone on that offensive line take some responsibility for that, and he didn't. So for that, I totally can agree with him getting the jag off.
Yeah. Okay. How about you?
Me is it's the theme of the podcast. I can't not give it to him. It's got to go to Mike Tomlin. I mean, it's just for everything we talked about. You had your own little rant. I had my own little rant. It's bad, but I think what boiled it over for me was him talking about the quarterback change that happened in the game, which we didn't even mention. Their starting quarterback Anthony Richardson got hurt very early on in the game. They brought him back in for a play, ran him, and he got hit again, and he went out of the game. And we had our old foe Joe Flacco come in,
Hmm.
and you would think, out of any quarterback in the NFL, the one the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin should know the best is Joe Flacco. They've played him so many times. He's beaten us so many times.
Same case with Andy Dalton, right? I mean,
Sure, yeah, yeah.
could be a weird thing, but
Absolutely. Mike Tomlin came out after the game in the press conference this week and said he wasn't prepared for Joe Flacco. They were prepared for Anthony Richardson, who has the running aspect to his game. Joe Flacco doesn't. I mean, you guys are NFL. It's an NFL staff, an NFL team, and you guys aren't prepared for a backup quarterback for like the offense in general. I just think
hmm
that's a lack of commitment and a lack of the attention to detail with the coaching staff, and just using that as an excuse you weren't ready for him. It's Joe Flacco. You've seen him a million times. You weren't ready for Shane Steichen is really the problem. Shane
yeah.
Steichen has a number on the Steelers, and I just thought that was a terrible answer, and just such a horrible excuse. The quarterback change you weren't ready for. Like, come on, give me a break. And I think that starts at the top with Mike Tomlin, and I just thought that was pitiful on top of everything else that we've talked about.
Yeah, I mean, total BS to me too, because from my perspective, you look at what you're gonna get when Joe Flacco comes into the game. Dude's what, 40 years old? You know he's gonna get the ball out of his hands as quick as possible. So
Right.
that's totally gonna change your pass rushing scheme in that game, right? So if that's what's gonna happen, then you need to adjust. And I'm a
Yeah.
30-year-old person who has never played a snap of football aside from, with my buddies in my life and do not I could never coach or
Yeah.
do anything like that. But like if I can recognize that, why can't we? And so yeah, I'm with you. I think
I
I
I
think
mean,
Mike Tomlin's deserving
and
for
I
it.
know it's hard for a defense, like for a quarterback swap like that. But again, it's a very well known guy. You know he's going to be aggressive and pass downfield, and just like I just you're not prepared for him. Like, what are you doing during the week? You got to prepare for all possibilities, and I just thought that was a lousy answer and a terrible excuse. So, Mike Tomlin, easy.
I thought you were going to go Joey Porter Jr., to be
Well, Joey
honest.
Porter Jr. was on the short list. Joey Porter Jr., Arthur Smith were my two other options. Arthur Smith, I again kind of have taken a step back on. I think it's not as much him as it is Mike Tomlin. We'll see in the coming weeks. But Joey Porter Jr. definitely was on the short list. Those two missed interceptions. He just did not play a good game.
Okay, let's close this out by talking good.
Yeah,
Balls of Steel. I'm going to give mine to someone that I think really helped change things a little bit in the second half.
yeah.
Cordero Patterson, 6 carries for 43 yards. That's a 7.2 average. He had a 12-yard run, was his longest. That was tied for the longest rush for the Steelers on the team, and as well as contributed in the pass game with two catches for 19 yards. Cordero Patterson just ran really hard. He ran downfield. It was a breath of fresh air after what Najee wasn't able to do in this game. Now, I think there's again, we talk about this too. I don't think we're fully utilizing Najee how we should, and Najee's a downhill runner, and
Yeah.
Cordell Patterson got a lot of those opportunities. But we see, the way things the Steelers switch it up sometimes. Sometimes Jalen Warren looks really explosive right down the middle, downhill, and he's not that necessarily kind of back. So that said, I think Cordell Patterson, helped us change the pace of the game a little bit in the second half. Accounted for a little over 60 yards just on 8 total touches. And so I'm happy to give this to Cordell Patterson. Great to have a guy like that on the team with a lot of veteran experience, dual threat player. What do you call it? A gadget player.
Yeah.
Good to see him utilized in that form in this game. So Cordell Patterson is my pick. I want to give it to a few others, but just for some major mistakes, I can't. And I think that's where you're going to go, but I'll let you have it.
Hey, Patterson's a great pick, though. Without Jalen Warren, we needed that boost of energy, and he really was. So I hope he's okay because him going out of the game obviously
Yeah.
was a huge impact. And you are exactly correct. I am going to give my balls to steals to Justin Fields. Listen, the fumble, the bad snap at the end, I get it. Those are really, really big game changing plays. But I don't think we're in a 3-point game without Justin Fields. He played unbelievable, and especially in the second half, I believe, put the team on his back. I mean, the stat line 22 of 34, 312 yards, 1 touchdown, led the team in rushing, 10 carries for 55 yards and 2 TDs. But really, like I said, it was the second half there. He had 233 total yards with 9.1 yards per pass, 3 total touchdowns, led 3 straight scoring drives. He actually, if you look at it, has better stats through 4 weeks than Patrick Mahomes. More
Hmm.
total yards, better completion percentage, same amount of touchdowns, less interceptions. I mean, if you just go through all of the stats, he's tied for seventh in total yards, tied for fifth in total TDs for quarterbacks. One of only 10 quarterbacks in the NFL with above 100 plus passer rating in week 4. The guy's playing really, really good football, and I think we don't have even stand a chance if it wasn't for him in the second half. So I know he had the mistakes. He's taken onus of that, which I think is a really big deal, and he's
Yep.
definitely being a leader. And he's just been, I don't know, I think he's been so good, and I have to give him some love.
Yeah, I'll support that. I saw a couple things out of Justin Fields that to me show a lot of maturity in a quarterback. Getting rid of the ball before you scramble, good throwaways, and knowing when to make certain decisions. So I agree. I stand by that. What you said. I don't think we're necessarily, not even necessarily, I don't think we're in this game at all, if not for Justin Fields. So yeah, that's a good pick. I like it.
Yeah. Just before we move on, kind of on that note, I kind of was talking about accountability with Zach Frazier. It seems like the rest of the team is sort of taking ownership of everything. I mean, Patrick Queen came out and said that his miscommunications on defense were terrible, and he said it's unacceptable on our part, starting with me. I got to do a better job of just getting the calls out to everybody. I'll take the blame for all that stuff. I mean, it was him, Mason McCormick, Justin Fields. A lot of these guys took a lot of blame, and I think that's good for the locker room. I think that also gets in their head a little bit, right? Nick Saban was on Pat McAfee shows last week and was talking about how he would much rather lose a game than win a game and play badly, because when you play badly and win a game, players get complacent and
Sure.
don't think they have to try because we won. Who cares? But when you lose, it lights a fire under your butt and gets you going and gets you more focused and energized. So I actually think, to spin this in a good note, I really think this came at a good time. Obviously, you never want to lose ever. But I think they really needed this loss. I think they were riding a high horse coming
Yeah.
in 3-0,
Yeah.
and it's a big game this week against Dallas. And we said we have 4 more games before the bye, and these are really important games before we go to the back stretch of the schedule that gets significantly harder. So I think it was actually a really good thing that we took this loss and now can improve from it, because as we said, a lot of it's self-inflicted that can be cleaned up. So let's clean it up and let's put emphasis on that moving forward.
Yeah, we need that. And hey, we're still sitting in first in the division at 3-1.
Yeah.
Baltimore behind us at 2-2, but both Cincinnati and Cleveland at 1-3. So we need to keep that lead while we have it and really capitalize. So great transition by you. Let's just go ahead and dive right into a little bit of a preview for this Dallas Cowboys game. Sunday night football in Pittsburgh, Acrisure Stadium. Cowboys are 2-2. Ironically, they're 2-0 on the road and 0-2 at home. They beat the Browns, their first game of the season on the road. They lost to the Saints, lost to the Ravens, and then they're just coming off a win against the Giants. I think that was Thursday night football. So
Yeah,
the Cowboys are pretty well rested. Despite that, they do have a good amount of injuries. I think their second wide receiver two, Brandon Cooks, has a knee infection. He's going to be out. Micah Parsons, I believe, is going to be out. One of their strongest players on defense. Um,
Demarcus
so
Lawrence, their other edge rusher, is out.
Okay, so riddled by injuries. I think we didn't talk too much about our injuries. I think I can go through that
Yeah, touch on
really
that.
quickly. Yeah, Mike Tomlin in his press conference today that said we can anticipate Alex Highsmith to be out. We did move James Daniels to IR,
Yeah,
unfortunately, so lost an offensive lineman. Mike Tomlin was pretty quick to say that, that's the reason that we've gone out and built a lot of depth. We should hopefully be getting Isaac Seumalo back this week, so that's good news. He also mentioned Jalen Warren, Cordell Patterson, Keanu Benton, and Michael Pruitt, all working to come back and hopefully should be participants, in this game. So that's all really good news on the Steelers front. Unfortunately, the James Daniels thing is a tough loss because he's been playing really well.
yeah,
But if you look at it, we are seeing some level of improvement in Broderick Jones. He has a lot of talent, right? Isaac Seumalo, arguably our best offensive lineman, he's coming back.
yeah.
Mason McCormick, we found a gem in the draft yet again. He's really well, and Zach Frazier, aside from the snaps, right? He's been incredible at the center. And Dan Moore is playing pretty well too, right?
Right.
So, the offensive line last game was pretty shoddy. I think
Yeah,
Justin Fields had 4 sacks, and yeah, it wasn't too great. You could see how they stacked the box, right? You talked about that, but nonetheless, we will be starting our fifth different combination of offensive linemen in this game, which is interesting.
tough.
And tough. But nonetheless, we, I think, are going to be a little bit better on the injury front than the Dallas Cowboys are.
Yeah, I mean, we have more quantity but less quality, I guess you could say. Yeah, we'll see how this comes in. The Cowboys come into the game as the 11th team in points scored. Their offense is fourth in passing yards per game and 32nd in rushing yards per game. So,
Hmm.
unlike last week where it was a run-heavy team and the Colts were facing a pass-heavy team, so we better hope that secondary and the linebacking core kind of gets their act together. Defensively, they're not as strong as teams we have played so far. They're 27th in points allowed, giving up 26 a game. They're 20th against the pass and 27th against the run. So, like we said last week, the Colts, I think, were in the 30s against the run, and they stuffed us pretty well. So, we'll see what happens with the Cowboys, but hopefully we can run the ball a little bit on them and be pretty balanced and still be aggressive offensively.
Yeah, 2.5 point favorites is how the Steelers are opening. Um, I think you can maybe attribute that to some of the injuries and being at home. Um,
Yeah,
Outside of that, this is a tough matchup for the Steelers. Um, Sunday night football is a game that you crave. Not really me. I hate it. Gets me too worked up on a Sunday night. But it's a big primetime game for the Steelers. So we got a lot to prove, right? This is the game I think where we can show that maybe we aren't the frauds that a lot of people are saying we are. We
yeah,
kind of took a step back after that loss to the Colts. So hopefully we can kind of get the wheels moving and firing on all cylinders because this team, regardless of being 2-2, is a tough game. So,
absolutely.
okay. Do you want to give a prediction, a bold prediction and a score prediction?
Yeah, I lost my bold prediction last week. Najee 100 plus rushing yards and a rush TD. That was not even close. That was a terrible bold prediction this year or this week. I guess you could say it's not bold. It's kind of bold, but I think Justin Fields is going to follow up his 300-yard performance with another 300-yard passing performance. I think he throws for 300 plus yards and 2 pass touchdowns. So he didn't have two last week. Maybe that's not as bold as we could get, but I had a terrible week last week, so I got to get safer. Really, what might be more bold is the score prediction. I think we cover the spread easy. I think we come out. It's Sunday Night Football. You know how we are prime time, especially at home. I think we come out of the gates fast, and I think the Cowboys have a hard time stopping us to start the game, and we actually win 31-20.
31 to 20. Wow. Okay. So
I
the
think we go a
over.
little bit aggressive on offense, and we score some points. That's why I'm saying it's a little bit more of a bold prediction.
Okay. I'm going to give you my prediction here, which I don't think is too bold. And actually, I think this is one that you said last game, but you didn't give it as your actual prediction. But I'm going to go with the Minka Fitzpatrick interception in this game.
Love that.
Dak loves to throw interceptions. He already has two on the season. I think Minka is in a position where he can play true safety ball. We got Terrell Edmonds back. Man, what an interesting addition to the Pittsburgh Steelers team.
Yeah,
But if we're moving and grooving and they're throwing the ball a lot, I think Minka Fitzpatrick is going to make a splash play, and I really hope that that can happen. So I'm going to say Dak Prescott throws an interception to Minka Fitzpatrick.
I love that. It'd be good to see him show up and get his hands on the ball.
Hope so too. Cool. Well, I think we're ready to close out. Anything else?
Now I think we hit it all. Hopefully, we're a little bit happier next week talking about this.
Hope so too. All right. Well, as always, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching us on YouTube if you're doing that, or listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever the other one is, Overcast. I always forget.
Overcast.
Shout out Overcast. So yeah, thanks everyone. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Peace.